Hi, I'm Vittorio Corbo, and the Stanley Parable is a game that takes 5 to 10 minutes to beat. And it's not just a one off ending, but rather every branching choice in the game lasts that long. Each one is this quirky meta mess where, by the game being short, you're incentivized to check out every path. Thus, the progression structure that the game has is perfect because it provides this rainbow of meta quirkiness that the player can go ahead and explore. Where if any of those endings was any longer, the subject matter just doesn't last enough. So that got me thinking, what are the other progression structures that video games have? Let's talk about it. Choices and branching. So why don't we start off with the Stanley Parable? So basically what you have is this branching tree. As we've said before, each one of those branches take 5 minutes, but it's so wide. There's so much breadth to it that if you want to see most of those paths, you do have a full game's run length, 5 hours or such. Then we go to a game like Henry Stickmin, which grabs his branching structure, but basically what happens is you can die in the game. So it's more about, it's a tree that is far longer, but with far more, stumps to it that die. And part of the fun of that game, because you can rewind at any choice, is, you never know which is the right choice to make, but rather there's a fun to seeing, Henry Stickmin dying in all these crazy ways or all these other ways that, they're failing. So it still has a branching structure, and it's not that long, but it uses its dead ends in an effective um, way. Then you get your standard, choose your own adventure game. Nowadays, the classic example is, Dispatch. Very long run length, multiple episodes, branching choices that will change your path as you go along. The whole game will take like 8 hours to beat. That's something more standard. But the example I like the most is Life is Strange. In that game, very similar to Dispatch, but basically, your main character has an ability to rewind time per scene. So you could go ahead and make a choice and rewind and see all the different outcomes you can have, and then choose the one you like the most, which I feel is a brilliant game design decision. Not only did they make it part of the story, but it's very hard to know what choice you'll actually like in these types of games without seeing it. A text blurb can only do so much. So I feel that this ability to rewind works wonders for the game. Then, what if you wanted to rewind all the way? Well, you technically get Doki Doki Literature Club. Well, it doesn't let you rewind proper. You can make as many save states as you want. Like the game has like 20 or something. So at any major intersection, you can make a save and rewind and see all the different choices. Who to romance, who not. And what's even more fascinating is to get the game's true ending. You do have to do that and get each major romance path to get the real ending. Linear games. So I feel the titular linear game we always have in our minds is Zelda Skyward Sword, which very linear for a Zelda game, but still you do have an open world to it. So, maybe a better example is going with Mario. But then that game has its own slew of problems. Because if you go to like the new Super Mario Bros. Series and Super Mario World, you can jump between worlds. You got the cannons that just let you skip worlds. So it's this linear line where we can just jump across. So that's not the best example. I feel the one that is Celeste. It's as linear as it can go. Just straight line, and like you die, you reset in the same room. But It's linear as it can go. And then what is interesting is a game like Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, where, straight line, but you can lose progress if you fall down. Linear, but still. But then if you keep going down this train of thought of, losing progress, you just go to the deep end. You get games that, are roguelites, games like Outer Wilds, Majora's Mask, arcade games, some where you can continue if you keep adding quarters, some if you don't, like some NES games are kind of like that. You just like balloons, it just goes into the deep end. So for the rest of this essay, we will skip the whole idea of losing progress, as that is another essay just by itself. So then, how do you vary a straight line? It's a bit hard, but Mario showed us that you can jump around. But I feel that a modern example is Split Fiction, where very linear game, but you have these side diversions, these small stories you can jump into that have nothing to do with the main game, but it lets you have a breather and have a different experience for a sec. And then the other thing you can do is have a linear game with open world levels. The best example of this is a game like Hitman. Each level is this crazy sandbox, but once you beat it, you go to the next, and the next, and the next, and it's just level, level. So in some ways, it is linear, even though each mission of it is not. And then you get an even crazier linearity, and is having a linear game inside of an open world game. Basically, GTA 5 is a good example of this, or Mafia, where you do have an open world, but all you got to do to progress the game is go to a mission which is linear, and you go from mission A to B to C to D to E to F all the way down to Z, and you finish the game. And there's not much you need to do in the open world to progress. We will talk later about true open world games, but like Breath of the Wild. But give it a sec. Finally, the last way that games can vary this linearity that we'll talk about today is where you have a straight line, but when you finish, you gotta play again to have a new experience in the game. I feel the best example of this is Undertale, where your first playthrough you must play neutral, and then you can then play a genocide, pacifist, or neutral again. Another great example of this is Solstice in One Shot. And then the one I love the most is The Messenger, where it starts as a linear platformer, but once you hit the midpoint, the game evolves into a Metroidvania, which is awesome. And it works brilliant for that game because that first run through, you get to accustom with the world, the different locales, and it eases you into the world, where normally in a Metroidvania you'd be very lost. So it eases you into it. And that neatly brings us to open world progression. I feel that the Metroidvania goes with open world progression because the exploration of the world is what leads you to progress. Not only do you not know where to go, so you must explore the world to find out where to go, but that progression through the world is anything but linear. You go to one section, find nothing, go to another section, find nothing, go another one, which opens something in another one. So it's this, branching, not even a branching, it's this crazy web of back and forth, exploring the world until you beat it. Then you have, your true open world, like Breath of the Wild, where you do your tutorial and then you can just go to the end of the game. And thus, the exploration of the world is more about you getting, better and stronger to beat that boss. And then, might not be fully open world, but I feel that, 3D Mario games, my favorite example being Mario Galaxy, fits this pretty well, where, yeah, it will start linear, but you need to choose which 70 out of 120 stars you get to beat the game. So you're not required to do, every major like painting or observatory, but it's more about the number of stars you get. So there's more choice about it's a pick 70 that gets you an ending. And I feel it's cool because, there's a new game plus mode with if you get all 120. And I feel this is similar to, Super Mario 3D Land or Legends of Arceus, which give you a certain bonus by getting all of the content. Consequently, another semi-open world game is a game like Kern, where you can't just stand around and do whatever you want. Like your resources will dwindle. You can't get enough. So you're forced to keep on moving, but you don't have an entire mountain. So it's more about you having, an example, one big rock face that's, somewhat wide, but you must choose your way up it. But it's not like there's something more outside that. So I do feel it makes sense to like thinking about it like, having big guardrails of openness. You choose your path within. Finally, her story in Obra Dinn shows us how you can use social deduction in an open world. You're just put there and must figure out a mystery, and you must rifle with the evidence, follow trails, and piece one giant mystery by yourself, and you're just left to your own devices in this open sandbox to do so. So wrapping things up, we can see how all these games have all kinds of different progression structures to them. But I feel that just categorizing it as, choices, linearity, and open world kind of makes these games a disservice, where in reality, a lot of it is just, modifiers that you add to a game. Like a new game plus run is not just a thing from linear games. Like Hollow Knight has a bit of that. Like you have an ending and then there's the true ending in it, and it's an open game. Or Nier Automata, which just has new game plus after new game plus after new game plus. Or a game like Monster Hunter, where you have low rank and then the monsters reset and you have like high rank and the story keeps on going. Or a game like Minute, which has the similar, looping of like game like Life is Strange in a more like open world puzzly game, where you just keep dying in this one. Or where you can have choices in a linear game. I feel like a game like BioShock or Dishonored, where each level you have choices you can make, which will affect the game's ending. So I feel that what is interesting here is how one small game design decision can create exponential branching different kinds of progressions in games, kind of like Stanley Parable. So I don't know. I just hope that after seeing this, you realize that progression structure in games is a thing that has so much untapped potential of exponential permutations of game progressions that don't even exist right now. But don't listen to that guy, because if you grab the original Mario, it is this, roguelike, but it's not random. So like it's its own kind of game. And then you grab Tetris, which, like each game is random, but then some versions of Tetris, you have a back system, and then you have like Pacific Drive, which is like this roguelike, like extraction game. And then you like have the roguelike and roguelite, so you have permanent progression. And that is progression structures in games. And I just want to say that there's so much more one can talk about, like online games or games where you lose progress, the whole tirade, or games that don't have much progression at all. But I can leave it for another time, maybe depending on how like YouTube progress. Like, sorry, but in all honesty, I'd happy to hear if y'all have any thoughts about this. I talked my mind off, and do you disagree? Do you feel some games I left out, other progression systems? Happy to hear you out. So yeah, I hope y'all have a great one. Take care.